Welcome back to Brave Ideas, Friday 5. You know how this works. Same as last week. Quick questions, quick answers. And today I'm delighted to have Ian Miner to answer some questions for us and share his expertise. I've gotten to know Ian very well over the last several years as a partner in Brave, and I'm excited to share his insights with you today. Ian, last week, everybody saw Carlo, and one of the things Carlo said was the first thing he looks at is the arrival experience and who's operating it on the ground when he looks at a repositioning project. It's really about first impressions, isn't it? And when you look at repositioning a tired office building and then launching that building again with a brand-led hospitality approach, when somebody arrives for that first impression, what's the most important thing that you think needs to be done right?
Well, this is like a welcome experience without words. So I really think it's the biggest problem you'll probably find with restaurants or bars if you walk past them. Is look at it from that angle. You never walk into an empty bar or an empty restaurant. You always look for something that's got a buzz going on it. And I think that's the first thing. And a lot of that comes down to the design and the warmth of the way it feels when you look at it from the outside to pull you in.
I love what you just said there, a welcome without words. And one of the other things Carlos said last week was that often landlords, when they're repositioning, they're adding amenities to the space as if it's an add-on, but that ends up making the building become more of a bunch of different products put together versus an actual service. So my question to you is, beyond the lobby, beyond that first impression, what does real hospitality-led service look like day to day in a mixed-use building?
It's consistency of standards. I think the level of consistency is probably the most important touch point that you can put on there. Nothing worse than never knowing from day to day what that level of service or standard is going to look like. So keep it very simple and basic.
I buy that. Consistency equals expectations equals a brand promise, right? One of the other things that was mentioned last week by Carlo was that staffing levels is a big unknown that can often blow out the pro forma. And I think that ties into this consistency of standards because you've got to have the staff delivering that. So where do teams get staffing wrong most often? And what's your sort of rule of thumb for getting it right without killing margin?
Maybe where they might go wrong is potentially they haven't defined the roles properly or the understanding of what that role needs to do on a day-by-day basis, and then how those individual roles merge and interact with each other. Probably I would say that could well be the instance of where maybe they get it wrong. Rule of thumb, firstly, let's say, what are the roles that you cannot live without? Is it a community manager? Is it an engagement manager? Is it a salesperson? What are the roles you cannot live without? And say that they're your base ones that you need to have within the operation. And then very simple rule of thumb is, you want to build your staff team numbers based on the revenue that you're generating. So a restaurant will be between 23-27% staff cost percentage against revenue. A hotel, probably 30 to 35% staff cost percentage against revenue. Nightclubs are way lower. From what I've learned with co-working, you're between 9 to 13%. So build your team based on the revenue you're generating. Start with a core base team and grow it.
I think we take it for granted all the time because we live and breathe it. But another thing that I want to pick up from Carlos mentioned last week and get your view on here is he talks about the simplest mixed-use move to drive NOI was having F&B on that ground floor, which I think can add to the buzz you're talking about earlier. What has to be true, though, operationally for this mixed-use environment for that F&B to actually work?
On that one, I think you've got to take into account, depending where you're based in this, if you're in London, out on the street at any point within 30 seconds of you leaving an office building, there's going to be some kind of F&B operator. So I think the first thing you've got to look at is the price point that you're going to sell something at. So if it's internal, it's going to have to be a cheaper coffee than you're going to get somewhere else. And again, that consistency level of quality needs to be there. If it's an office block, a big tower, then you've got to also be looking at variety of offering. Because if you're going to buy something from the same place day in, day out, it becomes boring. So you've got to be able to mix it up a little bit. Seasonality, let's say, and try and find yourself a differentiator. It could be that everything that you have within that kitchen element is freshly prepared on site, from the sauces all the way through to everything that you're doing. Find a differentiator from the marketplace.
Understand the local community and pick your lane. Once you've done that, and this is my last question for you, Ian, what is the single best leading indicator that experience is working? Something you can track on a weekly basis.
On the F&B front, you're going to have to get a product mix, probably from a point of sale machine, to understand which items you've got to sell the most. Those items that don't sell much, you take them off of the menu and do something different.
I got a feeling, Ian, you're going to be back on many times this year because I've witnessed it. You've got a depth of knowledge that we need to be sharing. So you have an invitation to come back. Thank you for spending the time, and thank you for tuning in. If you have different answers to these questions, or you have other questions for Ian, drop them in the comments or send us a DM. I'll tag Ian below so you guys can connect with him. Thanks again, Ian. See you soon.
Thanks, Caleb. Have a good day.